Hello, I'm Dr. Tamara Sachs, and I'm honored to be here to share some information with you about how to keep your heart and blood vessels healthy. Cardiovascular disease, heart and blood vessel diseases are one of the top killers, not just in our country, but globally. And that's really frustrating because of all the things, the top 5 things that cause death and disability, cardiovascular disease is the most preventable. We know that diet and lifestyle changes could change the face of these statistics I'm about to share with you and reduce them significantly. So let me tell you a little bit about how your blood vessels and heart work and what jobs that they do and where we are right now with heart disease in this country, and spend most of my time talking with you about what we can do to change all of this, right? I'm going to get my slides up. 1 second. So I want to start by telling you a little bit about how your blood vessels and heart work and then what we can do to keep them healthy. So what is this whole system? It's a transportation system. Our heart and our blood vessels are our mass transit. So the heart is much more than just a pump. The heart is a very smart pump. It secretes hormones on its own. It's lined with the same endothelial cells that we'll hear about in a minute that line every other blood vessel in your body. It's more than just a pump. However, it's pumping blood around your body 3 times a minute at least. Every 20 seconds, every single cell in your body gets fresh blood and blood that can take away all its waste. But in addition to being a transport system and giving and taking back products that the cell needs to change, it also has its own entire system. The endothelial system, the cardiovascular system has its own organ, these cells that make their own molecules of information. They're very active. They make all sorts of different compounds. And their 3 main roles is to regulate inflammation, to regulate clotting, and most of all, perhaps to regulate and change the size of arteries so that it can shunt blood where it needs to go when it needs to go there. So just a quick recap of what you probably know: blood carries oxygen in its red cells, but it also carries our immune cells, our white cells, and all of our antibodies and platelet cells, and also all the hormones that come from different parts of the body to relay their information to other parts of the body. And molecules of information, as we call them, hundreds of them, are transported from one place to another, from one cell to another in the bloodstream. They also carry all the nutrients from our gut. The blood vessels carry all those nutrients to places where they need to go to be transformed into energy. And then on its way out, the bloodstream carries away waste products like carbon dioxide and dead cells and just general debris. But most importantly, as I mentioned, one of the other functions that people forget about is this garden hose changeability. Think of your blood vessels as miles and miles of elastic pipes. And depending on their size, they can move blood from one area to another. And that's because every single artery is surrounded by muscle. And so signals to those muscles can make that muscle either relax and open the artery so that there's more blood, or constrict and make that blood flow harder and shunting blood elsewhere. The fact of the matter right now is, unfortunately, that cardiovascular disease in one form or another affects 1 in 3 Americans, and it's getting worse. Things like hypertension, high blood pressure, that's cardiovascular disease. Heart attacks and chest pain, angina, most of you recognize as cardiovascular disease, but also strokes and all blood clots are cardiovascular disease, as well as erectile dysfunction, and about 20% of all dementias are small vessels in the brain that are diseased. And the current reality is that it's the #1 cause of death by far in this country, over 650,000 a year. Worse than that, perhaps, there are 800,000 people who have a stroke every single year. And some of those are permanently disabling. And then there are non-fatal heart attacks to the tune of 850,000 per year. More women, way more women, die from heart disease and cardiovascular disease than from breast cancer, 5 times more. Sometimes we worry about the wrong things. And a new number, which is worrisome and going up, is that in the last just simply 2 decades, young women between the ages of 30, 40, have increased their chances of sudden death by over 20%. Heart attacks and strokes are happening in younger and younger people, and that is concerning and a trend that is rapidly accelerating. So all the more reason why I'm glad we're here to have this discussion, because of all the diseases, like I mentioned, cardiovascular disease is the most preventable with lifestyle. So why are these things getting worse? What's the escalation here? Why are we all getting sicker? Well, there's 5 main reasons for cardiovascular disease. I'm simplifying things, of course, but really the top 3 are what are the most important and what we're going to talk about. The first is high blood pressure. The second is oxidative stress, and the third is inflammation. These all have to do with injuring the cells that line blood vessels. So every part of your vasculature, every artery, vein, your heart itself is lined with a single layer of cells called endothelial cells. And you put all those cells together and it's a huge organ. It's responsible for a lot of things like I mentioned initially. So the endothelium is the organ, and the endothelial cells line the blood vessels, and they are your first line of defense against anything wrong with this entire system. But high blood pressure physically pounds those delicate cells that are only one cell thin and damages them over time. So high blood pressure is one of the main concerns because it's preventable and because it's the first injury that happens on the way to cardiovascular disease. Because once those endothelial cells are injured and breached, they no longer function as optimally as they could. Other things that can injure or breach the endothelial lining of your entire cardiovascular system is what's called oxidative stress. We'll get back to that in just a minute. And inflammation. So inflammation is both good and bad. Inflammation is absolutely necessary. It's how we fight infections. If you get a splinter and it stays there a little bit, your finger is going to get inflamed, which is red, sore, and swollen. And until that splinter is gone, your finger is going to remain inflamed because you're fighting all the bacteria that are on that splinter, and your immune system is doing its job. But once the splinter is removed and you've washed it with soap and water, the inflammation will go away. It's done, it's over. Chronic inflammation, inflammation that does not go away, is at the root of almost every single disease process that we've really looked at. So the combination of oxidative stress and inflammation are really the root cause of just about every chronic disease that we know of. There are toxins that also can damage endothelial cells and breach that barrier and start that whole process of plaque forming. Toxins like air pollution and cigarette smoke and something called homocysteine, which is a natural part of your body metabolism, but which needs to be removed with proper nutrition. Many more things like that can be toxic to your endothelial cells and also cause a breach. Too much sugar, too much insulin also is another way that we breach that endothelial lining or protective barrier. And that's the beginning of problems. So why, again, is this happening so much more in young people than it ever was before, and all the horrible numbers I told you about early on? Well, one of the ways to understand that is with looking at the trends in obesity. So obesity has truly taken a stunning, stunning rise in America in the last just 2 or 3 generations. In the 1980s, we went from a population that was 10 to 12% obese. I'm not referring to overweight now, obese. And so 10 to 12% in the 80s, and now we're at nearly 50%. We're at 45 and counting, depending on what state you look at. But overall, we're approaching 50% obesity in the next 10 years in this country. And it's not that obesity is the danger, it's the way we become obese. You can actually be overweight and be healthy. Most Americans aren't, however. The problem is the food that makes us obese is also the food that is killing us, that is causing us disease. The same foods that we eat too much of that cause weight gain are also causing inflammation, free radical damage, oxidative stress, hypertension. Everything that causes cardiovascular disease is in the foods that we tend to eat. Cheeseburgers, French fries, mozzarella sticks, you name it. Fast food nation, right? These foods themselves cause inflammation directly. These foods themselves cause free radical damage or oxidative stress. They cause damage because they have toxic fats like trans fats right in them. And worst of all, perhaps, is for all those calories you're getting in, you are getting 0 micronutrients. No micronutrients to be able to offset all that negative stuff that you see there. Whereas a plant-based diet, the green hand, has loaded with antioxidants that neutralizes free radicals and oxidative stress, one of the main causes of heart disease. Green vegetables and plant-based diets also are known to lower inflammation and to lower blood pressure and to lower your weight if you eat mostly those. And they are rich, of course, in micronutrients, which enable you to heal and to combat other stressors perhaps in your life. So inflammation, as I mentioned, is this chronic problem, not when it's acute and short-lived, but when it's a chronic ongoing problem, we truly know it's associated with dementias, with Alzheimer's, with fibrosis of the lung, with all sorts of horrible things that none of us want to have. And keeping our inflammation levels low is really key to staying healthy and living a long life. Oxidative stress is a little different. Oxidative stress is how we age. It's an imbalance between free radicals, which are inevitable and part of life, but which normally are neutralized very quickly by antioxidants. So free radicals hurt us, antioxidants neutralize them. But when we have an imbalance and we're making more free radicals than we are getting in antioxidants, which come from food, then we have oxidative stress. Oxidative stress means that the free radicals won that battle, and that causes wrinkles, that causes aging, that causes hardening of the arteries, that causes an apple to turn brown, and it causes cells to die prematurely. So this is kind of what happens in an artery. So on the top of the slide here is a normal artery. It's pink, it's smooth, it's like Teflon. All those cells and hormones just glide on by and feed every single cell. There's no obstruction, there's no interference. But as endothelial cells are injured, then a process of plaque can start to develop. So when endothelial cells are injured, they shrink and they create a space in between of them. And bad fats like bad or oxidized LDLs or small particle LDLs and other kinds of toxins can sneak past the endothelial barrier into the wall of the artery, as you see here. And that's where the whole problem begins. In the wall of the artery, you can put down plaque, which is bad fats. But the interesting thing is that you can do that and live a long life. You can have stable plaque and not die from it at all. In fact, up until just 50 or so years ago, that's what tended to happen. People in their 60s, 70s, 80s would have a heart attack and they would survive. It would not be the fatal event that it typically is in younger people now. That's because this plaque built up very, very gradually, and your body kindly built detours, collateral vessels around the blockage. So you had time, because this was such a slow process, because you weren't eating McDonald's every single day, you had time to create blood vessels to detour around the area that was beginning to be too filled with plaque. And so we know that people in their 70s, 80s would survive heart attacks. We also know that people older than that may die from their heart attacks, but we have lots of people who died from other things in their 80s and 90s who were seen to have tremendous amounts of plaque, but that's not their cause of death. And this is because with that inflammation, plaque can be, isn't always, but can be very benign, or at least you can cohabitate with plaque, depending on where it is. But inflammation changes the game. When you have chronic inflammation plus plaque, then plaque can rupture. And when plaque ruptures out into the blood vessel, you have plaque touching blood that immediately forms a clot, immediately. And a clot is always a bad thing in the wrong place. And if it's in your heart, it's going to cause a heart attack. If it's somewhere else in your head or neck, it may cause a stroke, and so on. So it's the inflammation plus the plaque that's really what's changed some of the statistics that have been the case in the last 30, 40 years or so, from surviving heart attacks in older people to having younger and younger people have heart attacks and not survive, an increase in sudden death. So we know how to fix this. We definitely know how to fix this. We know that the Mediterranean diet, a plant-based diet, reduces every single thing I just told you about: plaque, inflammation, oxidative stress, all of it. And we've done this for a long time. It's just that it's not sellable. It's not sexy. It's not a pill. It's a diet rich in plants. But this is just an example of a very good article, because it summarized the 2,000 or so other studies about the Mediterranean diet. There literally are that many studies on the Mediterranean diet. And the Mediterranean diet is by far and away the only diet that has been proven to do the things I'm going to tell you about. Just by the way, the paleo diet has not and won't ever be, and the keto diet has not and won't ever be. Only a plant-based diet has tons of evidence for decades that it does what we need to do to be healthy. A plant-based diet, I said. I didn't say plant only. I didn't say vegan or vegetarian. Plant-based means that half or more, ideally a little bit more, of every single meal is plants. Half raw, half cooked is ideal, but a lot of colorful plants in a huge variety. All the colors of the rainbow are very important to represent, and different foods all have different nutritional benefits. So the more different kinds of plants you eat, the healthier you become. So the study just summarized some of the things that were found over and over and over in studies looking at the cardiovascular protection in Mediterranean diet. So briefly, reduce blood pressure. I just told you, pounding on the artery is the first thing that causes endothelial cell damage. So we know a plant-based diet, like a Mediterranean diet, reduces blood pressure. We know that it improves vascular function, all those things that are important for an artery and a heart to be able to do, not to clot, to manage the oxidative stress balance called the redox reactions. All of those things are critical, and they are improved with a plant-based diet. When you eat mostly plants, you tend to lose weight. You tend to lose fat and gain muscle, which helps you feel better, helps you maybe exercise more. All sorts of things improve, including your blood pressure, when you lose 5 or 10 pounds or so. And when you do that as well, plus eat a plant-based diet to do it, then you reduce your bad fats like oxidized LDLs or rancid LDLs or small particle LDLs. Those are the ones that hurt us. Regular old cholesterol may or may not be a problem. It's way overblown, the amount of impact high cholesterol has. If you don't look at inflammation and all these other factors and nutritional issues, cholesterol really isn't a game changer at all. And then lastly, a plant-based Mediterranean diet reduces oxidative stress. The imbalance of free radicals needs antioxidants to fix it. Antioxidants are found in food. So for me, the Mediterranean diet is what I kind of grew up on. I'm lucky. I love it. I think it's delicious, but I get that for some people, parts of it are better than others. So most people have no problem with nuts and seeds, walnuts, almonds. Most of us like those. And many of us don't mind a glass of red wine. Not a problem, right? It goes down pretty smooth. And even the cold fish like salmon and avocados, most of us like those. The problem comes with the vegetables. For most Americans, eating more than half your plate of vegetables of a variety of color every single day is difficult. In fact, for all of us, it's difficult. It's really hard. But for some people, it's near on impossible, either because there are no areas to get produce, which is very, very common. We have food deserts all over this country where you have no markets, you have no farms, you have no way to get a Mediterranean diet, even if you tried, even if you wanted to. And in other places you can find it, but it's unaffordable. It's just too expensive. And then some people just don't know how to cook vegetables or how to eat them. They didn't grow up eating a lot of vegetables. They have no idea what to do with them or how to enjoy them. And then getting our kids to eat half your plate of vegetables every single meal. I don't need to say more to parents in the audience who have that problem, as I did years ago. So parts of it are easy, parts of it aren't, but it's generally the vegetables that get us stuck. And so, I wanted to summarize what that study did say, just to make sure I've underlined the point. A plant-based Mediterranean diet has been shown to reduce cardiovascular disease, we talked about that, but also breast cancer, depression, colorectal cancer, diabetes, obesity, asthma, inflammation, erectile dysfunction, blood flow, and cognitive decline. If that's not enough for you, this diet has also been known to improve waist to hip ratio, which is how big your belly is, lipids or cholesterol or bad fats, and markers of inflammation. Also death and other kinds of cardiovascular events in randomized controlled trials, as well as prospective trials, not just observational trials. And then lastly, maybe more importantly, these enhancements, meaning the Mediterranean diet, the changes in diet, easily rival those seen with more established tools used to fight cardiovascular disease. They easily rival, the diet rivals aspirin, beta blockers, blood pressure medicines, and even exercise. We don't have to choose. We can have all of them if we need them. But if you combine this diet with exercise and other lifestyle habits, then that's why we can reduce this #1 cause of death and disability by 75%. Tufts University scientists a couple of years ago did this amazing study, very detailed and careful study. And what they looked at is what would happen rather, if we simply subsidize by 1/3 the cost of produce for the elderly and the low income. Just 1/3 would save us billions. And then if they added subsidizing again, just 1/3 the cost of healthy fats like olive oil and fish like salmon, which are very expensive. All these things are very expensive for the average person. But if we subsidize those just 1/3, we would be able to not only save 100 billion in medical costs, but not for nothing, we'd save lives. We'd save 650,000 lives, 100,000 cases of diabetes, new onset diabetes, and almost 2 million strokes and heart attacks, just by subsidizing by 1/3 healthy food to Americans. See, we spend currently 2 times per person more than any other country on the planet for healthcare. 2 times more than anyone else. And yet there are 39 countries that currently have a higher or longer life expectancy than we do. We're doing something wrong. We're putting our money in the wrong place. We're subsidizing sugar and corn and soy and things that we shouldn't be eating instead of subsidizing ways to get us all healthier and reduce the overall cost of healthcare. Instead of talking about how do we pay for healthcare, let's lower the cost of healthcare by getting people healthier, by helping them do the right thing. So why is it that we need so many more vegetables? Why is vegetables even so important? I think I told you why they're important, but why do we need half our plate? Why do we need the variety? Well, that's how we're designed, #1. And our produce has gotten less and less nutritious over the last few decades. The soil has been depleted. We do monoculture. We do these huge farms. And nutrition is not the primary goal of a huge producing food farm. Right? Volume is. We price our food by weight, not by nutritional content. If we did, things would be very different. So the quality of our food is going down. At the same time, levels of pollution and toxins in the environment are going up, and toxins are neutralized by nutrition. So the more toxins, the more nutrition we need. And in fact, the less we're getting because our food is less and less nutritious and we don't eat the right things. Plus our food is picked non-ripe, and ripening is key, and it's trucked or flown, thousands sometimes of miles. Sometimes what you get in the market is 2-3 weeks old, and food starts to degrade in its nutritional potency from the moment it's picked. And so we don't eat enough of the right things. We can't even get them or afford them, and we certainly don't get the rainbow effect of all these different foods. This is our government's logo. This is what our tax dollars pay for, by the way. The USDA came out with this new program, which I love. It says fruits and veggies more matters. More is the biggest word in there because we know that more is important. The variety is important and the number is important. And we know, in fact, that there's no plateau, meaning there's no point at which more doesn't help you any. That's just not true. 7 servings is better than 6. 9 is better than 8. 10 is better than 9. There is no point at which more fruits and vegetables doesn't improve health. The only point is when you can't eat that many more. You don't have time in the day to be chewing and swallowing that many vegetables. But more is critically important as well as the variety. And we tried to do this. Some of you may have been part of this, like I was, with multivitamins. Simple, just take a pill to give you the things that you need. Well, it turns out it doesn't work. Multivitamins have a lot of a few things. Food has a little bit of a lot of things. Our cells are designed to eat food that has lots of different nutrients at small amounts. Our cells are not designed to get the nutrition that it needs from pills that have a large amount of the essential nutrients. That's not how it works. That's not how our microbiome works or our bodies work. So 21 years ago, when I was introduced to this company and this product, it took me a moment to get it. But then when I got it, I was thrilled. I did recognize that I wasn't, and my family was not eating enough produce. There was just no way that every single day we were getting a salad and everything else we should be getting. And that this was a way to bridge that gap between what we were actually eating and what I knew we should be eating. This was an elegant, science-based way to get better nutrition for myself and my family. And it made all the sense in the world, but the research is really what got me intrigued. So for those of you that don't know, Juice Plus is a concentrate of 30 raw fruits, vegetables, and berries. It's whole food. They grow it themselves for the purpose of being densely nutritious, not for growing pretty or shipping well or looking good on the stalls of the supermarket. They grow it for nutritional density, and they allow it to vine ripen. They pick it at top ripening, which is the maximum nutrition, and they process it really quickly, almost right away in the most cases. And they keep it cold from then on, so it locks in that nutrition. They don't just juice it. That's a kind of misnomer. What they actually do is they wash it, clean it, test it, and then they put the whole food into this like 2-story Vitamix blender, and they pulverize it. But they pulverize not what you and I would pulverize. They include the skin of the orange, the skin of the lemon, the bottom of the broccoli, the core of the pineapple. All those types, those parts of the food have incredible nutrition, but we don't generally eat them. There's actually more nutrition in the peel of an orange than in 3 oranges, but I don't eat them. Do you? So all of this goes into this blender, and then the water is just blown off. There's a proprietary process, but essentially it's minimally processed. It's pulverized. There's no water. Boom, you have a powder. You put the powder in a capsule. That's Juice Plus. That's what it is. And with the variety of 30 different foods that are impossible to get on a daily basis anywhere really in this country. So it's food, not a vitamin. It has a food label. It's the only capsule I know of in the world. It's a capsule with a food label, but that's because the FDA agrees it is food. It's a non-GMO food. It has no additives or preservatives. It's vegan because it's all plants, right? It's kosher, and it's gluten-free. It's NSF certified. NSF is an independent third-party lab. It's a not-for-profit lab that certifies lots of things, CAT scan machines and nuclear submarines, and NSF is a very well-known company. And NSF certifies that what is in our product is on our label, what is on our label is in our product and nothing else. This is by far and away the most nutritionally, this is by far and away the most researched nutritional supplement in the world. And this research is huge. So it's not the same as eating. Let's not confuse the issue here. I'm not for a minute suggesting that Juice Plus takes the place of having your plate full of food. It's the gap between what we try our best to do and that every day we don't quite get to. It's that insurance protection, that safety net between what you actually do eat, what your kids actually do eat, what your family actually eats, and what you know that they should eat. It's a way to get all that nutrition from all those different colors and all the variety in fruits and vegetables every single day in an absorbable, easy to digest form. And so I've been talking about what we call the trio, the berry blend, the fruit blend, and the vegetable blend. But there's a new kid on the block called the Omega blend. And the Omega blend adds another 6 foods to the 30 that we already have for even more variety. And it gives us a balanced blend of omega fats. Omega fats are really important for heart, for blood vessels and brain and joints, and for the eye especially. And they're magic on skin. You can actually apply them right to the skin rather than just swallow them. Both work really well for skin. And so what Omega Blend is a vegan plant-based formula of omegas. We use the algae, which is what fish eat, to make fish oil. Instead, we just go right to the algae. Plus we add 5 cold-pressed organic seeds. We're designed to eat sea vegetables, algae, and seeds. That's what we're supposed to eat. Fish oils are great, and don't get me wrong, sometimes they're useful, but they're useful medicinally. They've been altered to have a certain number of EPA or DHA for different purposes. We don't eat fish oil normally. We eat fish with a balanced amount of omegas, and this also has a balanced amount of omegas, but this is vegan and it's sustainable. The oceans are being depleted by fish oil supplement companies, and we need to take care of it for our future kids and grandkids. We also make a complete protein shake, which is amazing because it tastes great and it starts your day out with a low glycemic index, smooth burn energy with lots of protein from plants. We used a variety of sources for the protein, but one of them I want to point out is soy, because non-GMO, minimally processed soy, like this soy, like tofu and tempeh, are incredibly powerful, healthy foods. They've gotten a bad rap. It's undeserved. Non-GMO, minimally processed soy lowers cholesterol, raises bone density, does all sorts of wonderful things, and it has no estrogen or estrogen activity. That's all a myth. But this shake tastes great. It's great for kids. It's great for athletes. I use it for breakfast or for an in-between snack. And it's really a very great food to feed your microbiome with all that great fiber. And that's another talk and another way to get really healthy. And then lastly, we have these tower gardens, which I love. I'm looking at mine right now in my living room. It's a way to grow your own food inside or out, wherever you happen to be, faster, cheaper, easier, cleaner than any other food that you can grow. So are you getting the gist here? We're all about helping you have more plants in your life, in your gut, in your body, because more plants means more health. So the capsules, we have chewables of the powders for little kids. The complete adds another dozen or so vegetables, produce, plants to the mix. So do the omegas. So you're approaching about 50 different things every single day going through your heart, your blood vessels to feed every single cell of your body. And that's the key to health, the amount and the variety. So really our products make a difference. That's why I'm just proud and honored to be part of this mission. I think it is a mission. I think everybody I help to get taking Juice Plus or to grow their own food, I have made an impact in their and in their family's health. And maybe the best thing of all is the price. It's amazing. I don't know how they do it, but for $2.50 a day, you can get the trio that I mentioned, the berry, the vegetable, and the berry and the fruit blend every single day, 30 raw things going to your bloodstream for just $2.50 a day. You can't get a cup of coffee anymore for $2.50 a day. You can barely get a bottle of water. You certainly can't buy a container of organic blueberries for $2.50 a day, let alone 30 raw things. And then it even gets better. If you have kids, ages 4 to 18 or even older, if they're in college, they can get Juice Plus vegetable and fruit blend for free for 4 years, at least up to 4 years, for free, shipping. That's it. Just shipping. It's part of a health study that we're doing called the Family Health Study. There are over 1 million families enrolled in over 13 countries for a very long time now. And in return for the free product, we asked you for some information about how your health and your family's health is doing. And compiling all that information over these years has given us a wonderful glimpse as to what happens to children's health and well-being and self-care when they eat Juice Plus every single day. So just to be clear, there's nothing about treating anything here, right? This is food. We're talking about adding great food, concentrated nutrition to your body every single day, which might make you need less medication, but this has nothing to do with treating any specific thing or disease. We're talking about having your body optimally healthy. And so again, the nutrition is why I'm here. It is by far the most researched supplement around, and I don't have time to tell you about all 42 randomized controlled clinical trials that have been published in major journals all over the world over the last 27 years. But I do want to, in closing, just tell you briefly about 2 of those 42 studies, if I could. One I love because it shows the mechanism or the why that fruits and vegetables and berries are so powerful for us. So it was a study looking at overweight and obese women and Juice Plus versus placebo. And what they found was intriguing and wonderful and had been shown before, but not quite this way. We know that Juice Plus and plant-based diets as well lower LDL cholesterol. So when you combine a plant-based diet and Juice Plus, you get even more powerful lowering of the bad cholesterols. We also figured out with all these different changes that happened because these women also lost fat and gained muscle and had other wonderful things happen to them, that overall that reduced their risk for heart disease by up to 19%. That's huge. There are drugs that can't do that. And overall, Juice Plus lowered inflammation versus the placebo group. And the more inflamed or the more overweight the woman was, the better the effect of lowering that inflammation. So the more you need it, the more you get help. And then the reason that this all happens, the mechanism, which I find the interesting part of the study, is for the first time we looked at why. And what it turns out to be is epigenetically, having this kind of variety of fruits, vegetables, and berries in an absorbable form every single day turns on and turns off over 1,600 different genes that then lead to this increase in muscle, this decrease in fat, this better cholesterol ratio, all the things that we know the Mediterranean diet does and that Juice Plus also helps to do. We now understand that it's the epigenetics of these particular genes that are responsible. The second study I want to tell you about, I want to just remind you that one of the functions of the cardiovascular system is to constrict or dilate so that blood can go where it needs to go, right? So we know that heart attacks happen a lot more often after a large meal, for example, and there's a reason for that. And so your body's ability to get blood where it needs to go when you need it is your life. So this was an interesting study done by guys named Plotnick and Vogel. They've been around a long time. They've been studying food and the effect of different kinds of fats and different foods on arteries and endothelial function for years, decades, I'm not sure, a long time. And so they're famous in the world of endothelial function and food. So they were the ones that did the Juice Plus study looking at this. So here's what they knew to begin with. When people eat bad fats, their arteries constrict and cannot dilate for a long time. So they constructed this study where they had volunteers eat a fast food breakfast sandwich, hash browns, and a cup of coffee. And they measured their arteries' ability to dilate normally. And they found that across the field, everybody's arteries went from what they were originally, normal, to unable to dilate by negative 40%. So you're stuck with a constricted artery for 6 hours. You cannot open it. That's a negative 40% constriction is what it's called. So then they added Juice Plus to the mix. And so the first bar is the placebo group, nothing changed. They did these studies 3 times in the course of 28 days. And when nothing changed, nothing changed. Every time the placebo group ate this breakfast, their arteries were negative 40, able to vasodilate. Right? So whether it was the blue at day 1, the green at day 21, or the purple stripe at day 28, the people who ate this breakfast with no protection were unable to vasodilate. But look at the next bar over. The people who got the berry blend and the vegetable blend, after 28 days, when they ate that same sandwich, their arteries only constricted negative 16%, not negative 40. Less than half of the problem is gone. I'm sorry, more than half of their problem is gone. They were now able to vasodilate to bring blood where it needed to go appropriately, more than half as well as the people who ate the same sandwich but did not have the Juice Plus vegetable and fruit blend. But here's the magic. When they added the berry blend, the other two, and people were taking all 3 blends, then at day 28, they had these same people eat this same breakfast again. The people that were taking the trio for 28 days ate this same breakfast of a fast food sandwich and hash browns and coffee, and their arteries were essentially normal. They had no problem dilating when they were asked to and doing what normal arteries do. It pretty much negated the effects of the bad fat. So Mediterranean diet can enable you to eat not perfectly and still be really, really healthy. In the same vein, Juice Plus can help you mitigate the occasional not perfect diet. I certainly don't encourage this breakfast, but you get the gist. Fruits, vegetables, and berries are very powerful healing modalities, and they prevent us from getting sick in the first place, which is much, much better than healing us after we were already sick. So why is it that the berries made such a difference? Well, thousands of studies have been done exploring the cardioprotective role of grapes and berries, and they seem to work best in synergy. All by themselves, they're great, but when you add them to red things and green things, wow, then the synergy of all the different colors of the rainbow really take effect, and adding those grapes makes all the difference. Why? Well, grapes and berries have certain compounds, one of which you may have heard of called resveratrol. These compounds make a product or compound, a molecule rather, called nitric oxide. And nitric oxide is the most potent vasodilator that we know of. It immediately makes an artery dilate. And so resveratrol and other compounds increase blood flow. They help arteries to dilate. That's what they do. And that's why they're so powerful after that horrible breakfast that I told you about. So grapes and berries help dilate blood vessels. That increases blood flow. So for athletes, that's amazing. You can work out harder and longer and not have so much recovery because blood's flowing in there to get rid of lactic acid and protein carbonyls and all the other things that athletes suffer from. And so your recovery is faster and you can go further. It's the same way nitric oxide is the same exact mechanism for Viagra and Cialis. That's what those drugs do. They produce nitric oxide, which vasodilates. It's the same exact mechanism as berries and grapes and berry blend. So to summarize, these products have been studied, have been shown to do what fruits, vegetables, and berries do. They lower the risk of cardiovascular disease because they lower inflammation, 12 studies about that. They lower markers of heart disease, another 12 studies about that. We know that this works 42 studies later. 42 studies, all done at different university hospitals and medical centers, all done by people at the top of their field over 27 years, 4 continents, 30 different university medical centers, all published in very well-known peer-reviewed journals like the American College of Cardiology, like Pediatrics, like Sports Medicine Journal, the top one in the world. These are the players that we have doing this research. And there's much more underway. We're looking at aging, we're looking at the microbiome. Lots of good things are happening. A dear colleague of mine, Dr. Richard Du Bois, said it very well. He said it best, actually. There is nothing available anywhere else in the world, with or without a prescription, that has been clinically proven to do what Juice Plus does. That's pretty powerful. And so I have read all these studies. I have looked at this data for 22 years now on a regular basis. And I can promise you that if you knew what I knew, you would do what I do. You would never let the people that you love go a day without some fruit, lots of vegetables, and their Juice Plus. Thank you all for your attention. I hope this was helpful. I wish you all safe and healthy Heart Month.